Well, thank you for the introduction. I'm really happy to be here. And again, my name is Matthew Saito, and I'm excited to share a little bit about my NCI experience. There we go. And first, I want to give a big thank you to my supervisors at JANM, Yoku Nishimura and Vicky Murakami Suda, as well as my supervisor at Java, Kira Toshima. Thank you guys so much for working with me. It's been such a pleasure and a privilege to work with you guys. And you guided me so much throughout this process. I feel like I've been able to grow so much from your wisdom that you shared with me. And I also want to give a big thank you to Kizuna as well, and Java and JANM, the organizations itself, for doing what it took to allow this opportunity to still exist during the time of pandemic. I know, speaking from a personal level, a lot of my friends, they had internships that weren't available anymore because their organizations weren't able to host an internship program. And so I'm extremely grateful that you guys are able to do this and have this program. And I've really enjoyed this experience. It's been such an honor. So I know I haven't been able to see or meet a lot of you guys in person. So I thought before I go into my presentation, I would give a brief preface about me so that you guys can hopefully get to know me a little bit better, but also understand why this internship meant so much to me. So growing up before NCI, I actually wasn't very involved with the Japanese American community. Throughout my elementary school, middle school, high school, I was usually the only Asian American student or member in all the organizations I was in. And so these are some photos I have from high school. And as you can see, I'm usually the only Asian American in a lot of these photos. And that's how it was in my upbringing. The only connection I had to the Japanese American community was through playing in the Japanese American basketball leagues, and my dad would take me to Java dinners growing up. And so naturally, I wasn't as connected with the Japanese American community or with my Japanese American identity. And so later on in my junior year of high school, I found Kizuna. And so my mom actually found this program and she told me about it. And she said, this is a really great way to meet other Japanese Americans and get involved with the community. And going into it, you know, I never thought this would end up being a life-changing experience for me. Through this program, I was able to meet so many other Japanese Americans. And I felt that for the first time in my life, I was able to connect with my Japanese American identity and really be able to be a part of the community. And so Kizuna taught me so much about the work that our past predecessors do to allow us to have the community that we have today and have those opportunities. And they really were the first step that inspired me to get involved with the Japanese American community. And so after I finished high school, I really wanted to keep being involved with the community and continue to grow in my impact with it. So currently I go to Loyola Marymount University, and next year I'll be a third year. And actually the logo underneath the LMU logo is our Nikkei Student Union logo. And Nikkei Student Union is the only Japanese American club on our campus. And because I was really inspired by Kizuna, I've been very involved with this organization. And next year I'll have the privilege to be the president of the organization. And it's been such an honor, and I've been able to bring the experience I've had in the Japanese American community and continue to grow my impact with the community through this organization. And it was actually through NSU where I heard about the Nikkei Community Internship. And last year's intern for Java and JANM, Kayla Tanaka, told me about this opportunity. And when she told me about it, I became immediately interested because it was a way that I can continue and further my involvement with the community, but also gain the foundation so that in my future, I can have an impact and have a purpose within it. And so that segues into what I did during this internship. And there are three main aspects that of the internship that I carried out throughout this time. First was the practice visit days. Second was I researched and wrote 4 different articles. And third, I participated in Intern Days hosted by Kizuna. And throughout this slideshow, I'll make sure to outline exactly what I did and go further into detail exactly these 3 things. So first off with the practice visits. The practice visits, I was able to meet a new attorney each week. And through meeting those attorneys, I was able to gain insight on the careers and gain a new understanding of exactly a day-to-day workflow of an attorney, the work that they engage in on a day-to-day basis. And they gave me so much great insight about their careers, but also what I can do throughout my application process, what I can do during law school to make an impact as an attorney. And it was so much insightful information that I couldn't have gotten anywhere else. And to give you an insight of how much I didn't know about the law field going into the internship, on the picture to the right, I have, it's kind of a joke, but I didn't know what litigation was going into these practice visits. And so there's so much I didn't know, and I was able to learn so much about their careers through this process. But most of all, I really was impacted by each of the attorneys' impact with the community outside of their work. Each of them dedicate their time and their efforts into giving back to the community. And they showed me a bunch of different ways that I can be involved with the community. And it's not just through volunteering, but I can be involved with bar associations or nonprofits and so many other opportunities. And they really inspired me to continue being involved throughout my work. And so I want to give a big thank you to all the attorneys I met: Kira Tashima, Kathleen Endochuk, Stacy Tomita, Harumi Hata, Mike Motakuro, and Ayana Wolf. It's been so great, and it's been such a pleasure being able to meet you guys throughout this process. And it was such a highlight of my week to be able to have those one-on-one conversations with each of you. And in addition to the practice visits, I was able to attend JABA board meetings, JANM all staff meetings, and the Young Lawyers Group meetings. And by going to those meetings, I was able to gain a greater appreciation of what goes on behind the scenes. I think a lot of times we see the events and we see what goes on in the community, but a lot of people don't get the opportunity to see the work that goes into planning those events. And so I was able to gain that perspective and see exactly what events, what organizations, and what causes that each of the JABA and JANM are involved in. I was able to meet so many new people through this process. And I really enjoyed it. I've been very grateful that each of the meetings, they welcomed me with open arms and gave me an opportunity to sit in. So thank you for those, allowing me to sit in on those meetings. So going into my 4 projects, this is kind of the meat and potatoes of the internship. So going into my first project, I wrote an article about the Nikkei sports experience. And in this article, I decided to compare the experience of the Northern California Japanese American Basketball League to the Southern California one. And in order to do this, I interviewed 2 players from Northern California, the first one being Roston Nakamura, who's in the middle photo, he's inbounding the ball. And the second one being Caitlin Kyung, who's in the top photo, and she's kind of leaning to the right on one of her shoulders on her teammates. And then from Southern California, I interviewed one of my own teammates, Reese Kumesu, who's in the bottom photo. And when I interviewed them and looked back at the notes and thought about all the conversations that we had, I realized that both of the leagues are so similar in so many ways, and that the experience that we got from playing basketball went beyond the court. The things that we remember about that experience was being involved in the community, seeing the community, and being very grateful for the past predecessors and the work that they created for us to be able to play basketball. And there's so much history within the league and so much community that we've been able to be involved with through playing basketball. And I realized that I was able to have a connection with these other players, even though they're all the way in Northern California. And so in the future, seeing that we have so many similarities and seeing that we are part of the same community, I hope that I can bring solidarity within these 2 leagues and kind of break the barrier of distance, and hopefully in the future kind of do more events for the league to unite and be more connected with each other, because I truly believe that we can have a stronger voice, and the experience of being in the Japanese American Basketball League can be so much more magnified if we can create solidarity. And this was such a great experience and really allowed me to reflect on my time playing basketball. So going into my second project, I wrote an article about COVID-19 and xenophobia. And the main idea of the article was that xenophobia has never went away. It was just hidden. And I wrote this article because I had heard about some statistics about the amount of anti-Asian hate crimes have been decreasing in the 21st century. And so as I began to do more research, that was actually true. In the 21st century, the amount of anti-Asian hate crimes had actually been decreasing. But in 2020, with the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, uh, the amount of anti-Asian hate crimes had started to majorly increase. And so when I learned about that through researching, it really showed me that xenophobia has been something that's been an ongoing issue, that although we may have thought it has gone away because of the decrease in hate crimes, it truly never left. And so the increase of anti-Asian hate crimes and xenophobia has really affected the Asian American communities, and so many businesses, so many organizations have been starting to decline because of the xenophobia that they have of the Asian American community because of the pandemic. And what I realized during this research is that some of the crimes that occur on the Asian American communities, more specifically the Nikkei communities, parallel so eerily with the experience that took place in 1942 and the Japanese Americans that were living before World War II. And one example that I found was that a Japanese American store owner in Torrance had received a hate letter in front of their business. And on the right, in the middle photo is actually that letter that he received. And in the letter, they said things like, you don't belong here, we're gonna bomb your store. And hearing those things were extremely disheartening, but it paralleled so much of the propaganda that other business owners had placed on either their store or other Japanese American store in 1942 before World War II that expressed hate towards Japanese Americans. And seeing those two parallels was kind of frustrating for me to see, but I realized that I have so much work that I need to do to be involved in the community to help prevent and help stop xenophobia, because these issues are still something that exists today. And going into my third project, this project was to write an article about Chiyoko Sakamoto. And so I had two main goals for this project. First was to research her impact on the present day Nikkei community. And the second was to get insight on what motivated her. Being the first Japanese American female attorney in California, there's so many obstacles she had to face. But I want to know what motivated her in persevering her passions, but also having that innovative way of thinking. And so I began to conduct research about Chiyoko Sakamoto. And I was able to be in contact with various attorneys and judges, and they had such a positive experience with Chiyoko Sakamoto, and had a positive outlook on her, and had so much respect for the work that she did. And she was the co-founder of the Japanese American Bar Association, as well as the California Women's Bar Association as well. And so she paved the way for so many opportunities and broke the barriers. And through her career, she had to struggle. There's a lot of times she didn't get hired because she was a female Japanese American. And there's so many times she didn't get those opportunities that she definitely deserved. But she continued to persevere and not only create opportunities for herself, but create opportunities for the future generations, such as myself. And in researching for this project, I really tried to find some very primary resources and secondary resources about people who had relationships with Sakamoto and were able to had stories. But some of those researches proved to be a little bit difficult. But through the process, it really made me grateful for the resources that our community has. And I think it really heightens the importance of the Japanese American National Museum, the Japanese American Bar Association, because they document these resources and they make sure that our history is never forgotten. And so many people and other communities may not have those resources and organizations that really do that for the community. And it made me so grateful for our community and what we have. And it also made me grateful for the opportunities that I have today. I think a lot of times it's really easy to think that the opportunities that we have always been there, and because we've lived and grown up with it. But that's not true. There's so many people that paved the way, that persevered through oppression. And Shioko Sakamoto is an example of one of these people that paved the way for people like me to have an opportunity to study law and become an attorney. And it made me so grateful for all the people that created those opportunities for the future generation. And going on to my final project. This project was to write a reflection about Miya Yamamoto. And I really enjoyed this project. And this was definitely my favorite project to be engaged in and have the opportunity to be involved in. And so for this, for this reflection, I first researched Miya Yamamoto. And then after my research, I conducted an interview with her. And on the right is a picture of our interview, and we conducted it over Zoom. And during the interview, she expressed so much passion for the community, and she gave me so many different stories and shared so many different stories that led to her background as an attorney and the reasons why she's motivated in certain ways. And it was such an insightful experience for me. And so after the interview, I had the opportunity to transcribe the interview. And in the article, I wanted to highlight a few things that actually she had shared with me that I couldn't find before during my research. And one of her major influences in her life was growing up with the African American and Mexican American community. Seeing the oppression that those other minority group communities of color face really left an impact on her, because it made her realize that she needed to be involved as a Japanese American, and but not only be involved with the Japanese American community, but also all other communities of color. And so one quote that she mentioned a lot was that you find nobility when working with groups outside of our own. And so in her career, she's been very involved with a lot of different communities that are not just the Japanese American community. And she really emphasized that the work that we should do should always be to pursue the common good. And this was such a powerful statement. She had so many powerful stories to share. And I asked her in my final question, what is your ultimate vision for the Nikkei community? And she hopes that in the future that the Nikkei community unifies with other communities of color and communities such as the LGBTQ+. And this was such a profound perspective that changed the way I thought about the Japanese American community. In my work in the future, I want to be more involved with other communities and reach out to other communities so that we can unite and create solidarity within each other. And Miya Yamamoto gave me that insight, and it was I'm so grateful and thankful for that opportunity. And one quote I wanted to highlight that she told me in the very beginning of the interview was that what we do for money will support us, but what we do for free will define us. And this quote really left an impact on me, because as a college student, a lot of times colleges and college itself makes you feel like you have to pursue your career. You have to be successful in your career. But a lot of times they forget that what's more important than the career is your impact and your purpose and your work outside of it. And she really, this quote was so powerful because it really brought me home and really brought me back to what was truly important. And in my future career, I want to be more involved with the community because I want to leave an impact with it and be purposeful in all the work that I do. What we do in our career is not just enough, but what we do outside of it is what truly defines us. And this was such a powerful quote that I wanted to share from our interview. And so finally, the last portion of my internship was the Intern Days. And so during these Intern Days, I was able to meet a multitude of community leaders. And this was such a great experience for me, because even though it was over Zoom, I felt like because we were using technology, we're able to meet community leaders, not just in Southern California, but in places such as Northern California and Seattle and all other cities that we wouldn't have been able to meet before if it weren't for Zoom. And so because of it, I was able to get an understanding of communities, the Japanese American communities, not just in Southern California, but all different parts of the world. And this was really eye-opening for me. I got to see the work that goes on a daily basis that a lot of people don't see. And through these intern days, I was able to participate in workshops. In these workshops, we were able to sharpen our leadership skills, but also grow professionally. And I was able to grow different relationships with our cohort. And I think one thing that I really enjoyed was that we dived deep into our conversations with each other. They weren't just typical icebreakers like, where are you from or what do you do? But it was what motivated us. We had conversations about like our life experience that shaped the way we are today. I feel like because of it, I was able to still get a really have personal relationships with our cohort, and we always made sure to make time to meet up. And the picture on the right, that we actually were able to meet up and get boba outside of our intern days, while also making sure to social distance. And these are some of the pictures of what kind of our intern days looked like over Zoom. There was only 7 interns in the Southern California cohort. So I felt like I was able to get to know each and every one of them very well. And as you can see, we have some alumni from the NCI program. Catherine Benai is in the bottom left photo. And there's so many great people and so many more pictures I wish I could add, but it would have been way too many photos to add on one slide. But these are basically what our intern days look like. And they're so much fun, such a great experience, but so insightful at the same time. And I wanted to share my final thoughts about this experience. And because this is the Nikkei Community Internship, I wanted my final message be what community means to me after this experience. And as I mentioned before, the idea of community had been so different throughout my upbringing. And through this experience, I've been able to connect with the community in such a meaningful way. And so I felt that through this experience, community to me is legacy and future. Our past predecessors had struggled through oppression, had faced unequal opportunities, and had broken the barriers for us to have the opportunities that we have today. And they continue to persevere no matter what it took, because they believed in a hope for the better future. The opportunities that I have today are because of our past predecessors that created those opportunities for me. And as time goes on, the community will continue to change. New experiences will be formed that will continue to define the community. But the one thing that will never change is the legacy of our past predecessors and what they did to create the community and lay the foundation for what we have today. And this experience made me so appreciative for all that I had, and made me so appreciative of the community. And so it's been such an honor. I've been such a privilege to be the Japanese American Bar Association and the Japanese American National Museum Nikkei Community Intern. I know I would not have had this perspective on community if it weren't for this experience. It was such a unique experience for me in ways that I couldn't have imagined. And so thank you so much for this time and this opportunity to present with you guys. And I hope that in the future, I'll be able to meet all of you in person after this pandemic ends. So thank you.